They came from the dark edges of the galaxy. No one knew their true name, so people simply called them the Conquerors. They were not explorers, they were not traders, they were not builders. They were destroyers, and they were proud of it. For centuries, they traveled from system to system. Every world they found became their property. Every race they met was forced to kneel or die. Resistance meant extinction, and surrender meant slavery. It was that simple, and it worked. Their fleets were vast. Their ships like black mountains moving through the void. Each vessel carried weapons strong enough to shatter cities in seconds. Their technology was older than most stars, refined by endless wars. No planet could defend against them, no defense shield could stop them. One by one, civilizations burned. The Conquerors believed in strength. They did not understand mercy. They did not value peace. To them, kindness was weakness, and weakness deserved death. So they ruled with fear, and fear kept the galaxy silent. Whole empires collapsed at their arrival. Proud kings bent their knees. Mighty armies threw down their weapons. Even the bravest warriors could not stand against their firepower. The Conquerors crushed them all. They did not conquer for resources alone. They conquered for dominance. They enjoyed the act of bending others to their will. It was a ritual, a way to prove again and again that no one could stand against them. Legends spread across the galaxy. Stories told of entire worlds gone in a single night. Cities reduced to ash by beams of impossible energy. Children stolen. Parents executed. Cultures erased. And always at the center of these stories stood the Conquerors. They called themselves the rightful rulers of the stars. In their arrogance, they declared that no species would ever challenge them. Why would they, when even the strongest fell with ease? The Conquerors laughed at the idea of resistance. The galaxy became a graveyard of lost dreams. Once great civilizations left only ruins. Libraries turned to dust, monuments shattered, histories forgotten. And above those ruins, the Conquerors raised their banners. Black and silver, symbols of eternal domination. Their leaders were cruel but clever. They knew how to control with terror. If one planet disobeyed, 10 planets were punished. If one slave rebelled, 1,000 slaves were executed. Fear was the chain that bound the galaxy together. But inside this fear, whispers began. Whispers that not all had fallen. Not every race had been broken. Somewhere, someone still fought. The Conquerors ignored these rumors. To them, resistance was a joke. The galaxy, in their eyes, was already theirs. What was left to fear, what was left to doubt. They believed they were unstoppable. They believed they were eternal. In the great war halls of the Conqueror Empire, their generals boasted. One said, "We broke the Serpent clans in 3 days." Another replied, "We erased the Crystal Folk in a single strike." A third laughed, "We have taken worlds faster than we can count." And all of them agreed, nothing could challenge their rule. The soldiers of the empire marched with pride. They thought of themselves as the hand of destiny. They saw the stars not as lights in the sky, but as prizes waiting to be claimed. For them, conquest was not duty, it was pleasure. They conquered because they could. To the conquered, they seemed like gods. Gods of death and fire. No plea could soften them. No gift could bribe them. When their fleets arrived, only 2 choices remained. Bow or burn. Civilizations tried to resist, of course. Some raised armies, some built weapons, some prayed to their gods. But the end was always the same. Defeat, destruction, despair. The Conquerors fed on that despair. It gave them joy, it gave them power. The galaxy grew darker with each passing year. Stars that once shone with the light of free worlds now burned under the shadow of the Empire. And in this darkness, the Conquerors celebrated. They believed their triumph was complete. They believed no enemy existed. They believed the future belonged only to them. But the universe is never so simple, and history never ends the way tyrants expect. For beyond their sight, hidden in the ashes of forgotten battles, a new story waited to begin. A story that would shake the empire to its core. A story that would prove them wrong. They were the conquerors, rulers of countless stars. But soon, they would learn the one truth they never imagined, that even the strongest empire can fall, and sometimes the smallest spark can burn down the darkest empire. The conquerors ruled the stars with iron claws. Their fleets moved like storms across the galaxy. They feared nothing, they doubted nothing. To them, the galaxy was already defeated. But then the whispers began. At first, they were nothing more than stories, carried by slaves, smugglers, and frightened travelers. Strange tales of a single human ship moving silently through the conquered zones. Some called it a shadow, some called it a ghost. It appeared without warning, struck like thunder, and vanished again. The conquerors laughed when they heard. Humans, they said, are weak, scattered, almost extinct. To them, humanity was no threat. The humans had no empire, no fleets, no great armies. Most had been enslaved or destroyed long ago. So how could one ship matter? And yet, the rumors did not die. In fact, they grew, spreading faster than fire through dry fields. Merchants spoke of patrols that vanished in deep space. Prisoners whispered of supply convoys that never reached their bases. Some said they saw burning wrecks drifting, with human markings carved into the metal. Always the same words, always the same symbol. A warning scratched into steel. Humanity fights back. Commanders of the empire dismissed these stories. They told their soldiers, fear is a disease. Do not listen to the weak. But even they noticed something strange. Small fleets began to vanish. Scout ships went silent. Whole outposts failed to report back. It was not war, not yet, but it was something new. The first survivor who spoke of the ghost ship was a pilot. His vessel limped back, broken and scarred. He swore on his life that he had seen it. A ship, human in design but different. Not old and weak like the relics humans once flew. This one was deadly, faster, stronger, smarter. It moved like a predator. It tore through his squadron as if they were insects. And then it vanished, leaving only wreckage behind. The high command laughed at him. They called him a coward. They said he was imagining things, but still the whispers continued. And whispers, when ignored, can grow into storms. In dark taverns on conquered worlds, slaves told each other the same dream, that a human ship still sailed free, that it was striking back for those who could not. To them it was hope, a single spark in endless darkness. And hope is more dangerous than any weapon. The conquerors did not understand this. They thought in numbers, fleets, and firepower. They did not believe in symbols. They did not believe in legends. And that was their mistake. Because the ghost ship was not only real, it was clever, it was patient. It struck where the empire was weakest. It never fought full fleets, it never showed itself for long. It attacked the edges, the soft parts of the empire's power. And each time it left behind fear. One commander, more cautious than the others, began to study the pattern. He marked the locations of the disappearances. He traced the path of wreckage across star maps. And slowly he realized something chilling. The attacks were not random. They were moving closer and closer, like a hunter circling its prey, like a storm gathering before a strike. He warned the high command, but they mocked him. Do you fear one ship against an empire? They said. Do you think humans can do what entire empires could not? And the commander fell silent. But deep in his heart, he wondered. Meanwhile, among the conquered, the legend grew. They began to call it the human phantom. A ship that carried the anger of a fallen species. A ship that fought not for territory, but for vengeance. Children whispered its name in the shadows. Adults swore it was real, even when guards beat them for speaking. Every time a patrol failed to return, the legend grew stronger. The conquerors tried to crush the rumors. They executed anyone who spread them. They silenced entire villages for daring to speak of the ghost ship. But even this could not kill the story, because every destroyed fleet, every lost patrol was proof that something was out there, something they could not see, could not catch, could not kill. For the first time in centuries, the empire felt a shadow of doubt. It was small, almost invisible, but it was there. A question that no one wanted to ask out loud. What if the ghost ship is real? The Conquerors told themselves it was only one vessel, that even if it existed, it could not stand against them forever. But deep in the silence of space, they did not laugh anymore, because they had learned one simple truth. It is not the size of the enemy that matters. It is the fear they leave behind. And the human ship was leaving fear wherever it went. It was no longer just a rumor, no longer just a whisper. It was a shadow spreading across the galaxy. And soon, the Conquerors would learn what true fear really meant. The Conquerors had heard enough rumors. They decided it was time to end the whispers. No ghost ship could stand against their empire. No human craft could survive their power. So they sent a scouting fleet to hunt. It was a small force compared to their great armadas, but powerful enough to erase a world. The fleet entered a quiet system at the edge of conquered space. There was nothing there but a mining colony, broken and abandoned. Sensors swept the empty rocks, searching for any sign of movement. The commanders laughed, saying the humans had tricked them with children's tales. But then the alarms began to ring. A shape appeared on their scanners. Small, alone, drifting among the asteroids. At first, it looked like nothing more than wreckage. But then it moved, slow at first, then fast. The Conqueror commander ordered his ships to prepare weapons. The ghost ship had come. It looked nothing like their vessels. It was sharp, angular, covered in strange markings. Its surface seemed alive, shifting with faint light. It did not broadcast signals, it did not announce itself. It came forward in silence, like a predator stalking prey. The commander sneered. One ship? This is the ghost we fear. He gave the order to fire, and a storm of energy bolts filled the void. But the human ship moved. It slid through the attacks like water around rocks. Bolts missed, missiles failed to track. The ghost ship was faster than anything they had ever seen. Then it struck. Its weapons were not like theirs. They were precise, brutal, efficient. A single beam lanced through the lead ship, tearing it in half. Another burst shattered a destroyer. In seconds, the mighty fleet was broken. Panic spread. Conqueror pilots shouted in fear. They had never seen a ship fight this way. It attacked from impossible angles. It appeared on one side of the battlefield, then vanished, then appeared again. Every time it struck, another ship burned. The commander tried to rally his forces. He ordered them to surround it, to crush it with numbers. But numbers did not matter. The ghost ship slipped through gaps. It danced between their fire like a shadow. And one by one, their ships exploded. The survivors fled. Some in escape pods, some in crippled vessels. They abandoned the system, their screams echoing over comms. And still the ghost ship did not chase. It simply vanished, melting back into the silence of space. When the survivors returned to high command, they were broken. Their words were filled with terror. It was not a ship, one cried. It was death itself. The generals mocked them at first, calling them cowards. But when they saw the wreckage data, when they counted the destroyed ships, even they grew quiet. For the first time in centuries, the empire had lost a battle. Not to an armada, not to an empire, not to a fleet, but to a single human ship. The shame burned them. But worse than shame was fear. Fear that maybe the whispers had been true. The story spread faster than ever. On conquered worlds, slaves celebrated in secret. They said the human phantom had struck again. They said the empire could bleed. Even guards whispered nervously, wondering if the ghost ship would appear above their skies. The conquerors tried to cover it up. They told their people the loss was only an accident. A trap, a hidden minefield, a freak event. But no one believed them. Too many survivors had spoken. Too many voices carried the same terror. The ghost ship had become real. Not a rumor, not a legend, but a fact. The empire had seen it, and the empire had failed to destroy it. In the darkness of their war halls, the generals argued. Some said it was only one ship, and one ship could never win. Others warned that it was only the beginning. that humans had always been dangerous even when weak. And if they had built this one vessel, perhaps they had built more. Still, the High Command chose pride over caution. They ordered larger fleets to hunt the Phantom. They swore to crush it once and for all. They promised their people that the Empire remained unbroken. But inside, they were shaken, because they knew the truth. They had seen the impossible. A single ship had defied them. A single ship had defeated them. And if one ship could do this, what else was waiting? What else had humanity prepared? The Conquerors were used to winning easily. They were used to burning worlds without effort. But now, their fleets looked at the stars with doubt. Every shadow in space seemed dangerous. Every silent scanner ping felt like a warning. And every soldier whispered the same question. What if it comes for us next? The first encounter had ended. But it was not victory for the Empire. It was the beginning of their fear. The ghost ship was no longer a story. It was a hunter, and the Conquerors had just become its prey. The Empire could not ignore the ghost ship anymore. It had destroyed fleets, escaped traps, and left only wreckage behind. But the strangest thing was not its power. The strangest thing was its silence. Every ship in the galaxy broadcast signals. Every empire used codes, languages, and markers to show identity. But the ghost ship sent nothing. No calls, no warnings, no surrender demands. It came without sound, struck without words, and vanished without reason. The Conquerors studied the fragments left from the battles. Twisted metal, melted armor, broken engines. But even those pieces carried secrets. The alloys were human, yes, but changed, forged with something unknown, something the Empire had never seen. It was as if humans had built technology beyond their time. Technology the Empire could not fully understand. Some scientists whispered a theory. They said the ship was not only human. It was more than that, perhaps a hybrid of human design and alien knowledge. Perhaps even something alive. But the High Command silenced them. They would not admit fear, not in front of their people. Still, the questions grew. Why did the ship strike only certain fleets? Why did it ignore some targets and annihilate others? Why did it never take prisoners, never claim resources, never send messages? Was it a machine, or was it guided by something else? Something unseen, something hidden. Among the slaves of conquered worlds, the mystery turned into myth. They said the ghost ship carried the souls of the dead, that it was piloted by the spirits of humans killed by the Empire. Others said it was not a ship at all but a weapon with a human heart. Some even claimed it was the last warship of old Earth, reborn to take revenge. But the truth was stranger than the stories. The ship fought like no human fleet ever had. It used tactics the Empire could not predict. It struck weak points as if it knew them in advance. It vanished in ways no ship should be able to, and sometimes enemy pilots swore they heard whispers. Whispers in their comms, whispers in their minds, as if the ship itself was speaking without sound. The commanders grew restless. Every time they thought they cornered it, it slipped away. Every time they thought they understood its weapons, it revealed something new. They sent larger fleets, stronger fleets, and yet the ghost ship always survived. Sometimes it destroyed, sometimes it fled, but never did it fall. One captain, desperate to prove himself, pursued it across 3 systems. He poured his entire fleet into the chase. But in the end, he was left alone. His ships burned, his soldiers gone. He sent one last message before his flagship was destroyed, and his words echoed across the Empire. It knows us, it knows how we think. It fights like it has been watching us for years. The High Command grew silent after that, because deep inside, they feared he was right. What if the ghost ship was not fighting blindly? What if it had studied the Empire? What if it had learned their weaknesses, their pride, their arrogance? The mystery deepened. Scouts reported sightings in distant systems. Always a flash of strange light. Always a wreck left behind. But never a true face-to-face capture. The ghost ship was everywhere, yet nowhere. It was hunting, but what was it hunting for? Among the Conquerors, doubt grew. Some generals called it a trick. They said humanity was trying to make the Empire waste fleets. Others said it was a symbol, nothing more. That fear made the Empire weaker than the ship itself. But a few believed something darker. That the ghost ship was not a weapon of humans, but a weapon of humanity itself. The last creation of a species pushed to the edge. They began to wonder, was this ship truly alone? Or was it only the first? Was it a warning of what was coming? Or was it already too late to stop it? The ghost ship had no name, no voice, no flag, and that was what made it terrifying. Could be anything, anyone, anywhere, and the more they tried to understand it, the less sense it made. In secret meetings, the highest leaders whispered the same question. Is it a ship, or is it something more? But none had an answer, because answers required knowledge, and knowledge required control, and control was slipping from their hands. The conquerors were used to clear victories. They were used to enemies they could see, armies they could crush. But the ghost ship gave them something new. Not just fear, not just defeat, but uncertainty. And uncertainty is poison to an empire built on pride. The mystery spread like wildfire. Every soldier who went to war wondered if they would face it. Every slave who prayed in silence wondered when it would strike again. The galaxy held its breath, waiting for the next appearance. And the conquerors, for the first time in their history, began to ask themselves, what if we are not the hunters anymore? What if we are the hunted? The ghost ship had haunted the empire long enough. It had struck their fleets, shattered their pride, and filled their soldiers with fear. The high command could not allow this shadow to continue, so they decided on one plan, one trap, one final strike. They gathered the largest fleet ever assembled. Thousands of warships, carriers, destroyers, and cruisers. They brought weapons older than history, weapons banned by treaties the empire had broken long ago. Every general, every admiral, every strategist swore this time the ghost ship would die. The order was clear. Find it, surround it, erase it. The conquerors believed numbers never failed. They believed the weight of their fleets was enough to crush anything. And as their ships gathered in the void, the galaxy shook with their power. No force had ever stood against such an armada. They thought they would write the end of the human story in one single battle. But the ghost ship was already watching. It had always been watching. It knew the empire. It knew their habits, their pride, their arrogance. And it came willingly into the trap. The fleet waited near a gas giant. Sensors spread across the system. Hundreds of eyes searching for a shadow. And then it appeared. Silent, alone, drifting as if careless. The ghost ship had come. The generals laughed. This is the ship that made us afraid, they said. Today, we erase it from history. And the order was given to close in. Thousands of ships surrounded it, their weapons ready. The trap was complete, but the trap was not theirs. It was the ship's. In the first instant, the ghost ship moved. It unleashed weapons the empire had never seen before. A storm of light cut through the black. Carriers burned. Cruisers exploded, destroyers broke apart like toys. The armada staggered, confused. How could one ship strike so hard? The empire tried to tighten their grip. They fired every weapon, every missile, every beam. But the ghost ship slipped through. Its shields bent space itself. Its movements bent reason. It was everywhere and nowhere. And with each strike, more of the empire's greatest fleet was destroyed. The soldiers shouted in panic. They begged for orders, they begged for escape. The admirals screamed at them to fight. But no one wanted to fight death itself. And that was what the ghost ship had become. Death with a human face. It cut through the armada like a knife through flesh. Every tactic the empire used failed. Every formation broke apart. Ships collided. Commanders turned on each other in desperation. And in the chaos, the ghost ship remained calm, precise, cold, unstoppable. One by one, the empire's flagships fell. Admirals who had boasted of their power vanished in fire. Generals who had sworn eternal victory died without understanding how. The largest fleet in history was no longer a weapon. It was wreckage, it was fire, it was silence, and the galaxy watched. Every eye turned to that battle. Every race held its breath as the Empire's pride burned. For centuries, the Conquerors had seemed untouchable, but now their power was breaking in plain sight, and their enemies, once too afraid to rise, began to whisper again. In the shadows of conquered worlds, hope lit like fire. The slaves said, "The Empire can fall." The rebels said, "The fight is not over." And humanity, once thought lost, once thought broken, became a symbol again, all because of one ship. The turning point had come. It was not just a battle, it was a wound the Empire could not hide, a wound that showed the galaxy the truth. The Conquerors were not gods. They could bleed, they could fail, they could fall. The survivors of the fleet limped back, broken and silent. No one dared laugh at the ghost ship anymore. No one dared call it rumor or myth. Now it was real, more real than anything the Empire had ever faced. The High Command tried to lie. They told their people the fleet had been ambushed by many enemies. They said the humans had allies, they said other empires had joined the fight. But their soldiers knew the truth. Their slaves knew the truth. The galaxy knew the truth. One ship had broken them. One ship had changed everything. And in that moment, the Empire realized a terrible fact. They were no longer the hunters. They were prey. And the predator was human. The turning point was not just a defeat. It was a beginning, a signal to the galaxy that resistance was possible. That rebellion was not foolish. That humanity had returned. And the Conquerors, for the first time in their long history, feared the future. Because the ghost ship was not finished. It had only begun. The Empire was wounded. Its greatest fleet lay broken. Its pride turned to ash. But the ghost ship did not stop. Pressed harder, striking deeper into the heart of their power. Each attack shook the Empire. Fleets that once moved like storms now hesitated. Soldiers who once marched with arrogance now marched with fear. They looked to the stars not with hunger, but with dread. For in every shadow, they imagined the ghost ship waiting. The galaxy began to stir. Worlds that had been silent for centuries rose in rebellion. Slaves broke chains, rebels lit fires, and whispers turned into shouts. The ghost ship had become more than a weapon. It had become a symbol, a promise that the Empire could fall. Humanity revealed itself. Not many, not strong in numbers, but fierce. They had hidden in the ruins. They had survived in the cracks of the galaxy. Now they came forward, guided by the phantom ship. Old warships were restored. Small fleets were built. Scattered humans joined the fight. And with them came allies. Species who had once bowed in fear now rose in hope. The Empire struck back with fury. They sent armies to crush the uprisings. They burned whole cities to silence rebellion. But the more they struck, the more the galaxy resisted. Because now every battle was not only against the Empire. It was for the ghost ship, for the symbol of freedom. The final war had begun. Not a war of empires, not a war of armies, but a war of survival. The Conquerors fought to keep control. The galaxy fought to be free. The ghost ship led from the shadows. It struck the Empire's supply lines, crippled shipyards, it cut communication. No fleet could move without fearing its sudden arrival. No general could rest without dreaming of its shadow. The Conquerors tried to build new weapons. They forged massive cannons, unstoppable bombs, even ships larger than cities. But no matter what they built, the ghost ship found a way to destroy it. It was not only firepower, it was strategy. It struck where it hurt most. It chose targets not for numbers, but for meaning. And meaning is what broke the Empire. Whole systems fell into rebellion. Planets turned against their masters. Armies once loyal laid down their weapons and joined the resistance. The Empire was stretched too thin. They had ruled by fear, but fear no longer worked. Because the galaxy had found something stronger. Hope. Battles raged in every corner of the stars. On frozen worlds, on burning deserts, on shattered moons. The conquerors fought with fury, but the tide was turning. For the first time, they were losing more than they were winning. For the first time, they faced enemies who would not kneel. The ghost ship appeared in the largest battles. Not always at the start, but always at the moment of despair. When resistance forces were about to fall, when hope was almost gone, it would arrive, tearing through the enemy like fire through dry wood. This presence turned defeat into victory. This shadow turned fear into courage. The empire began to collapse, not in one great fall, but in cracks spreading everywhere. World by world, fleet by fleet, their grip weakened. The final war was not only a fight of weapons. It was a fight of spirit. And the empire's spirit was breaking. The high command grew desperate. They argued in secret halls. Some demanded retreat, others demanded more destruction. But none had answers, because the truth was simple. They had underestimated humanity. They had thought humans weak, scattered, and broken. But humans were something the empire could never understand. They were patient. They waited, they endured, and then they struck. The final war burned for years. The empire poured out its fury. The galaxy poured out its rage. And at the center of it all, like a blade cutting through history, was the ghost ship. It became more than metal, more than a vessel. It became a legend alive. Children on rebel worlds painted its shape on walls. Soldiers swore their courage on its name. And even in the darkest battles, when defeat seemed certain, they whispered, "The phantom will come." And it did. The conquerors, who had once thought themselves eternal, now saw their empire burning piece by piece. They saw enemies rise where slaves once crawled. They saw fear turn against them. And for the first time, they saw the end. The final war was not finished. The greatest battle was still to come. But the empire already knew the truth. The tide had turned. The hunter had become the hunted. The rulers had become the desperate. And humanity, once forgotten, now stood at the center of history. The ghost ship had brought them to this moment. And soon it would decide the fate of the galaxy itself. The final war burned across the stars. World after world broke free. The conquerors bled in every system. And yet they refused to surrender. Their emperor, a figure feared even by his own kind, gathered what remained of their strength. The last fleets, the last armies, the last fortresses. He swore that the empire would never fall. He promised that the ghost ship would be destroyed. Once and for all, the galaxy waited. Every species, every rebel, every soldier knew the end was near. The last battle was coming. A battle that would decide who ruled the stars. The conquerors gathered near their throne world, a planet of iron and fire, protected by rings of warships and weapons. It was a fortress like no other, the heart of their power, the symbol of their rule. And above it, the emperor's flagship waited, a vessel so massive it blotted out the stars. The rebels moved carefully, fleets of humans, fleets of allies, fleets of those who had once been slaves. They gathered not for conquest, but for survival. And at their center, unseen until the moment was right, the ghost ship drifted. Silent, patient, waiting for the final strike. The battle began with fire. Thousands of ships clashed, beams of light tearing across the void. Explosions lit the skies like dying suns. The empire fought with desperation. The rebels fought with fury. The galaxy itself trembled. The ghost ship moved among them, precise, relentless, untouchable. It cut through enemy lines, it broke apart defenses. It hunted the strongest, and everywhere it struck, the rebels cheered. But the conquerors did not break. Not yet. The emperor himself gave the command, and his flagship moved. It was larger than cities, armed with weapons no other ship could carry. Its power was said to burn entire moons. And now it turned all that power on one target. The ghost ship. The battlefield froze. Every soldier, every pilot, every rebel held their breath. The empire had brought its final weapon against the phantom. If the ghost ship fell, hope would die with it. If it survived, the empire would collapse forever. The emperor's voice thundered across the channels. You are not gods, you are not legends, you are only humans. And today you die. The flagship unleashed its fury. Cannons fired. Beams tore across the void. Missiles filled the stars. A storm of destruction no ship should survive. But the ghost ship did not fall. It moved with impossible speed. It twisted through the fire. Its shields bent under the assault. But they did not break. And then it answered. A single beam, sharper than light itself, cut across the Emperor's fleet. Dozens of ships vanished in flame. Another strike crippled the great cannons. The flagship shook, but it did not fall. The Emperor roared in rage. The battle turned into a duel. The Emperor's ship against the ghost ship. One symbol of tyranny against one symbol of freedom. The galaxy watched as the two titans clashed. The end of history unfolding before their eyes. The ghost ship fought like no machine. It fought like something alive. It anticipated every move, it countered every strike. It was as if it knew the enemy before they acted. And then the revelation came. For the first time the ghost ship spoke. Not with sound, not with language, but with presence. A voice that entered the minds of all who fought. Cold, human, unyielding. We are humanity. We are not extinct. We are not weak. We are patient. And we are your end. The truth spread like lightning. The ghost ship was not only a vessel. It was the union of human minds and machine. A living weapon, forged from the last survivors of Earth. Their thoughts, their memories, their rage bound into steel. It was not one pilot, it was many. It was not a ship, it was humanity itself. The conquerors faltered. For the first time, their emperor showed fear. How could they destroy an enemy that was not a person? How could they fight against the will of an entire species? A species that refused to die. The ghost ship struck again. It tore through the flagship's defenses. It ripped apart its shields. And with one final blow, it shattered the emperor's throne. The great vessel burned, breaking apart piece by piece. And with it, the empire fell. The battlefield grew silent. The conquerors who survived surrendered. The rebels shouted in victory. And the galaxy changed forever. The ghost ship did not claim a throne. It did not demand power. It simply vanished back into the stars. A shadow, a protector, a reminder. The legend was complete. Humanity had been thought weak. Humanity had been thought broken. But they had been patient. They had waited, endured, and then returned. And in the end, it was humanity that had conquered the conquerors. The Empire's age was over. A new age had begun. An age written not by tyrants, but by survivors, by rebels, by humans. The galaxy would never forget the ghost ship. The ship that turned whispers into war. The ship that became the spirit of resistance. The ship that ended an empire. And somewhere, in the endless silence of space, still waited, watching, ready, because humanity knew one truth the empire never understood. Victory is not given. Victory is taken. And those who think themselves eternal always fall.